Today, we're diving into a court case out of Taiwan that starts with a really painful family conflict, but ends up changing the law itself. It all boils down to a fundamental question. What happens when your legal duty to care for a loved one is physically blocked by someone else in your own family?
I mean, think about it. You've been appointed by a court as the one and only legal guardian for a family member. It is your job, your responsibility, but then another family member literally stands in your way, stopping you from doing your duty. Is that just a messy family fight, or is that something more? Is it a violation of your legal rights you can actually sue over?
So let's meet the family at the heart of this. You have the father, Wu Kanqi, who sadly couldn't care for himself anymore. You have his daughter, Wu Chechen, who the court officially named as his legal guardian. And then you have his son, Wu Po-sung, who is actually the one physically taking care of him. Right there, you can already feel the tension building between a sister's legal authority and a brother's hands-on care. And you can see on the timeline just how quickly this all snowballed. After the father's stroke in 2017, things really came to a boil in January of 2020. That's when the court appointed the daughter as the sole legal guardian. But when she tried to exercise that right, to move her father to her home where she could care for him, her brother said no. He physically stopped her. And that single moment, that refusal, kicked off years of legal battles. So what does the sister do? She sues him. She argued that what he did wasn't just a simple disagreement. She claimed it cost her a ton of emotional distress. But just as importantly, she said it cost her actual money. Think of all the travel costs she had to pay for, driving back and forth, trying and failing to do the job the court had given her. Now, you'd think she'd have a pretty strong case, right? Well, nope. She hit a brick wall. And not just once, but twice. Both the local district court and then the high court shut her down. They basically sided with the brother. So the big question is, why? The court's reasoning pretty much boiled down to this one phrase from the legal documents, "shangwu bu tuo." Loosely, it means no impropriety found. Basically, the courts looked at the situation and said, look, the father is getting care from his son, he seems stable, so we don't see a problem here. So let's break down their logic. They saw the father's care was stable. They pointed out that the son, as a son, also has a duty to care for his father. But here it is, the most important part of their decision. They define guardianship as only an obligation, a duty you have to do for someone else. They decided it was not a personal right that belonged to the guardian. And if it's not a right, well, you can't sue someone for violating it. And honestly, for most cases, that would have been the end of the road. But the sister didn't give up. She appealed one last time, all the way up to Taiwan Supreme Court. And this is where the entire story takes a fascinating turn, because the highest court in the land decided to look at the whole idea of guardianship in a completely new way. The Supreme Court came back with this really sharp, split decision. On one hand, they agreed with the lower courts about the emotional distress. They said, yeah, sorry, guardianship isn't that kind of personal right, so that claim is dismissed. But, and this is a huge but, they completely flipped the script on the financial claim. They ruled that yes, guardianship is a legally protected right, and if someone interferes with it and causes you to lose money, that's a different story. And this wasn't just a small victory for the sister. This was huge. It established a brand new, incredibly powerful legal precedent in Taiwan. It finally gave a solid answer to the question, what exactly is a guardian's right? So the court gave us this new term, an obligation right. It sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple and really smart. They're saying, yes, being a guardian is an obligation. It's a duty you owe to someone else. But it's also a right, an exclusive power given to you to carry out that duty. And the law has to protect that right from being blocked. So what's the bottom line here? It's simple, but it's a game changer. Because guardianship is now a protected right, if someone gets in your way and stops you from doing your duties, you now have the legal power to sue them for the actual money you lost because of their interference. Okay, so the case gets kicked back down to the high court, but now they have brand new, crystal clear instructions from the Supreme Court. Their new job was simple, just do the math. Calculate the sister's actual direct financial losses. So after all those years, all the legal drama, what was the final award? It was just over 9,000 new Taiwan dollars. That's about 300 US dollars. And I know what you're thinking. That seems like nothing, right? Exactly. And that's the whole point. This case was never, ever about the money. The tiny size of the award proves it. The real victory here wasn't the cash. It was the principle. It was about forcing the entire legal system to finally recognize that a guardian's authority is a real right that can't be trampled on without consequences. And you can see right here where that number came from. It wasn't just made up. The court literally calculated the costs for the 11 round trips she made. We're talking about road tolls, gas money, even an allowance for wear and tear on her car's tires. It grounds this huge, abstract legal principle in the very real, very mundane cost of just trying to do your job. So in the end, the law provided a clear answer, a number, and a vital precedent for every guardian in Taiwan. But it leaves us with this final, more human question, doesn't it? A court can settle a legal fight, but in these incredibly painful family disputes, can a ruling ever really heal what's been broken? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.